killer apps, devices, and content. And more important, it has a tagline, show me the money. And that's for a good reason, because the internet is exploding, telephony is exploding, but what is emerging is a very chaotic universe, from little college students swapping song files up until a big podcast network like a News Corp or an NBC trying to negotiate the digital environment, from villagers holding 1,000 rupee handset in their hands to Google making billions of dollars in cash. Everybody is part of one big unified ecosystem that we call broadly the converged network. So what happens into this network, in such a network, is we are past the age of the one-to-many communication. It's not one-to-many, it's not few-to-many, it's all about many-to-many. It's globalization of the mind at some level, you could say. So from a business perspective, there are critical questions that are emerging, because the old-fashioned monopolies or monopolistic systems are gone, but there are great opportunities for innovation and creation of new businesses and business models emerging in this. As telecom companies put in more and more money into their infrastructure and increase the penetration through very attractive tariff packages, the big question is, what are the killer apps that will drive the ecosystem once the penetration is in place, so that the average revenue per user goes up for the telecom operator to justify the investment, and at the same time people at large, customers at large benefit. So this is the context in which we are functioning today. So let's discuss this issue. I have with me a very interesting panel. We have there Bhupesh Raghav, who's the director of Aegis Consulting. Then we have Amrish Gupta, who's the CEO of Knowlarity, who's just introduced a new term called cloud telephony. More on that later. Then we have Badri Sanjeevi, who's the CEO of Moj Mobile and Mobango.
Good afternoon.
And then we have, of course, Anuraj Gambhir, who's a strategic advisor on innovation and who's been with Ericsson. He runs something called SteadWorks now. And then we have Bhupesh Daheria, who's the CEO of the AD School of Business and Telecommunication. Now let me ask about something which is basically agitating everyone in this phase of convergence, which is, where is the money coming from, or where is the money going to? Because this is the age of the saying, content is king, but not very sure if the king has a crown called money. So let me ask Badri Sanjeevi, who obviously should have some very interesting answers, because he's been batting in this test cricket called convergence for about 10 years now.
Yeah, straight.
He's been through the dot-com meltdown, and his hairs are not grey yet, so hopefully he should answer some real questions, at least on perseverance, if not on money.
Sure.
So Badri, where is the money going?
All right. App economy or application economy is the big buzz point that people are using nowadays, and the word application itself is probably a bit misused. Almost anything is an application today. People call a casual game an application today, or people call Angry Birds an application today. But application is simply a way to deliver content to an end user device, be it a PC, be it a smartphone, be it a tablet, or be it an old Nokia tiny black screen devices. I mean, if you think of it, the first camera was an application. So frankly, application is a fairly broad word. To the last count, I think there are at least about a million counter apps across the various app stores, whether it is Apple's app store, whether it is Android's market, whether it is Mobango's, which is our own application store, or the GetJar's application store. And content, as Madhu will know, is the greatest challenge in content is discovery and distribution. Somebody can, they keep saying, for example, on Airtel's portals, there are about 5 lakh songs, but in the lifetime, only about 20,000 have been downloaded. There are 4,80,000 songs which have still not been downloaded, maybe even once by any customer. And that is the greatest challenge for any content provider. How does he get his content made available to the end user? How do you get it on that person's phone? And then many things have been tried. They've tried to embed it. They've tried to pre-bake it before a phone gets sold. They've tried to sell SD cards with content on it. They've tried to sell it through CRBD, mobile radio, wallpapers, downloads, ringtones, whatever. And this new way of downloading applications has emerged to be an emerging way of delivering content to people. And all these stores called app stores are coming up where you can go and you can download them. So the first challenge is distribution, even before monetization, because monetization comes later, where you make money out of customers paying for it or advertising dollars paying for it. The absolute first challenge is actually distribution and discovery of the application, and that's the that's the point where we start off this debate on.
I think that's a very good point to start on, because if content were to be, let's say, physical products, you need something like a Walmart. You have shelves being built and products being kept on the shelf so that people walking in can actually see whether there is a loaf of bread, or whether there is a pet food, or whether there is a blanket up on the shelf.
Sure.
So therefore you need a content discovery mechanism, and this easiest way out in this world of search and browser is kind of anything that actually creates a platform that helps people discover content. But that still doesn't take away the question of money. So let me throw that at Anurag Gambhir. Are there any interesting monetization models that you've come across?
Well, talk about money. I mean, which is the second largest contributor to the U.S. economy right now? The market value cap, Apple. They're going to be in a few months, probably exceeding ExxonMobil, as was reported in the paper yesterday. $347.8 billion worth. I mean, just look at the way they monetized the entire IP that they've created. And if you look at the app world, the app store with 425K apps, how many are truly being monetized on? I mean, roughly 1 in 13 apps are paid apps. This is the general figure that I've been hearing. But when you look at it, really, it's about having the multiple genres, going down to the micro-segmented level of offerings, and then trying to see what is meaningful for different communities, for micro-communities, and then targeting that around. So I think that's the stage to monetization to an extent. Of course, Angry Birds was an interesting experiment. Somebody struck it and did very well. And it's amazing what it's led to. I mean, every little 3-year-old, my 3-year-old's crazy on it on the iPad, for example. So it's led to a whole segment of new possibilities.
I think it's a very interesting point, because you mentioned Apple. This is precisely the time to break a big myth about Apple. Apple, everybody sees as a device company, because you have iPods and iPads and the Mac OS and stuff like that. But if you look hard, Apple is an ecosystem company. It manages the entire ecosystem. Without iTunes, there would be no iPod.
Exactly.
And without the app market, there would be no iPad. So what you're doing is creating a full circle where people come and actually consume content, and the device becomes incidental to the content.
And then the accessories, which is another huge monetization contributor.
That's right.
So the iTrip, the iHome, the entire players around it is again another huge piece of the pie.
So that's very important takeaway, that you have to have the ecosystem for the apps, for the killer apps to emerge. Now, but let's look at it from the user's point of view. Bhupesh Daharia, my question to you is, do you see any special trends emerging in user awareness, or any new practices emerging in the way users are looked at in the telecom industry?
Pretty complex question, but yes, users have started paying money for the applications and content. But still in India, it's a long way to go, right? The success model is primarily Western models. And how far these Western models are going to be successful in India, it's a really doubtful issue, right? I have been interacting with one of the best content providers in entertainment industry, be it UTV, be it Balaji Telefilms, or everybody. India, nobody pays for songs download. Nobody pays to watch a video clip, right? So the monetization model of entertainment content is absolutely zero. There is no monetization model. You actually can't make money. You will not like to really pay for watching cricket on your mobile phone or download any application. Like I have been using Tab for a couple of months, but hardly like twice or thrice I have downloaded some application which is paid application just to see what they are offering. And disappointingly, most of the applications are simply is a micro form of a website. It's not application. So what he was talking about that yes, there is a distribution issue. I would rather say it's not a distribution issue. There are too many contents are there, right? There's too much of applications are there which are not truly applications, right? So there is so much crowded space that the user is finding very difficulty that which application is the real application or whether it is a content or is really offering some value. So the user is afraid
So
to
instead
really
of,
go
instead of serving the consumer, you're confusing the consumer.
yes, you're confusing.
No,
So there's so many players.
Yeah, okay, just to act exactly right. It is discovery of the right applications is what I was referring to. Actually, there are so many places to distribute it from, but discovery, making your
It's very
content which you
interesting
think is
because
right.
I think Google remains the most intuitive, simple discovery engine for most of us, whereas actually there should be a case for a much more sophisticated way of discovering content, right?
Yes.
I think the killer app is also there,
No, that is where like you need to really build the proprietary, say, shopping malls, like app store. You need not to have 1 million applications. There is no need of the application. If you talk about the human needs, how many needs are there? Probably 100 or probably 1,000. It cannot go in million. No way it can go in million, right? You're making user confused, right? If you have to really offer content for MBA or finance lecture, you can't offer say 1 million faculties lecture available on MBA finance.
I think
There's no
it's a
way.
point. I think it's a point. What the subtle lesson or the implicit takeaway in what Bhupesh is saying is that maybe the industry is biting off more than it can chew, and it should actually hold the hands of the consumers in taking the next level of apps rather than merely talk about the zillions of apps that they don't even know of. So that's one point, but I think there's a lot more ground to be
Can I
covered
just
there.
add on the monetization? I think there are a couple of very important points that you said. And I want to kind of speak for just a minute about mobile advertising as an emerging large industry, and that's very, very important to kind of, let me just start with throwing a few statistics, and I think hopefully they relate to some of these. Rovio, which is the company that makes Angry Birds, they sold both versions of it, a premium version, the company where it was bought by the consumers, and a free version, which was funded by advertisement. This data point maybe was 6 months old, but the amount of money that they make every month on the ad-funded or the free model of Angry Birds was $2 million a month, was whatever. Whereas the premium version, that almost stopped after about $5-6 million per it. So mobile advertising model is very important. The reason I'm stressing on that is our app store that we run called mobango.com, it's a free app store. The customers do not pay for anything for downloading. We drive about 10 lakh downloads a day of applications. There are various ways of making money using mobile advertising, be it advertisements which are embedded within the applications, or in a contextual way, or many other forms of advertising that kind of follows it. Mobile advertising market in the world is about $4 billion big. Half of it is US, about $2 billion. Half of globally the mobile advertising market is actually Google, because the Google search on mobile is still the single biggest provider of advertising money. Apple and a few others occupy the rest of the spot, and this industry is growing frantically fast. This was $1.5 billion last year. This was about $400 billion the previous year. This is nearly tripling, nearly year on year. So to that extent, advertising is a real model here to monetize the millions of free downloads and millions of free consumption.
Okay, I think I would argue with you on that, but I might have my own issues on that because it's very interesting because advertising is, although it's getting better targeted, it's more database focused. it's sort of, it's very close to the age of the mass media that we saw throughout the 20th century, which means one big mass to be served through advertisements as a indirect revenue model for content creation. I'd love to come back on that, Anurag, but I think we should bring in, Amrish Gupta here for a very interesting reason. Killer apps need not necessarily be about the consumers doing games. It can be even at the back end, in the way business models are altered, in the way technologies are used to create value chains that are very different from the ones that you've seen before. I think that's where Amrish is coming in. I just got excited when I heard that his company, which is called Knowlarity, is doing what he called cloud telephony. That sounds very cool. So let's see you talk a bit about where is the scope for an innovation or killer app in the back end of the infrastructure that we are talking about.
Sure, yes. So I'll give you context of why we come up with this idea of cloud telephony, and the real reason was money. So how do you make money easily with the Indian consumers? And the idea was the consumer, the real consumer, not the enterprises. Consumer will have a lot of resistance to paying money. They would want entertainment, they would want free entertainment. It will be difficult for us to ask them to shell out 200 rupees for which is just entertainment. So what we did was what we said, we are going to go to enterprises who are actually making money and try to create value for them. So value where they can make, because of our services, if they can start making 5,000 rupees extra, they'll not have any problem giving us 500 rupees out of it. So that was the idea with which we started this cloud telephony company, Knowlarity, in which what happens that any telephone, irrespective of how dumb or how smart it is, it can run our cloud telephony applications, which can be receptionist service and a bunch of other business productivity tools kind of things. And these interfaces are very, very simple. They don't really have to learn anything. And everything runs on the back end, which is on our servers. Now the advantage of this is that the reach becomes very, very wide. Anybody who has any telephone, any kind of telephone, whether it's old or new telephone, they can use our services. They don't have to learn anything, they don't have to install anything, the discovery problem disappears. And now what we do is we actually pick up specific applications and just make those applications. So we don't have 1 million applications, we have 5. 5 applications that enterprises across the countries in India need that actually solve significant problem for them, which is worth 5,000 rupees a month, and we go and ask them 500 rupees, and they are willing to pay for it. So we started with money, and we said that we are not going to go and give them every possible thing that they can ever dream of. We are going to say, what is your pain point? Give me the 5 biggest pain points that you have, and we are going to go and solve those problems for you. And we are going to present you the solution in a format where you don't have to learn anything new. It just works, and it works.
Why do you call it telephony in that case? I mean, this is looks more like ASP or
It's a SaaS model, software as a service, versus telephony services that are provided in the back end. These are, everything is telephony. It's a voice telephony that we're talking about. It's not data telephony, it's a voice telephony that we're talking about. But I think the big, if we were to talk about where is the money in applications, telephony applications, and where are the applications that are creating real value in terms of productivity enhancement, saving people time for enterprises, and the enterprises are convinced enough that they are willing to pay for it. It actually means that actually the value is being created. These are some of the applications.
Very interesting. You see, Bhupesh was kind enough to name the country India, meaning we are in an industry which has technologies that were innovated everywhere, but the last mile is always in the country that you live in the market that you serve. So we had McDonald's coming into this country. They had to invent the vegetarian burger so that they could conquer India. So that is important to remember, because you have to address the Indian customer. And there are back-end issues, whether it's monetization or business model. He's talking about the Indian SME, then he's talking about cloud telephony. And therefore, there is also the other angle You're talking about 800 million mobile connections now, you're talking about penetration at the rural level, you're talking about USO in telephony. So it means things are no longer urban, it's also rural. So let me bring in Bhupesh Raghav there. You know, rural areas is something I think he's been looking at.